I am honored to be with us here with a longtime journalist and writer, Kelly O'Meara, who has written a follow-on to her initial book. It was called Psyched Out, right, Kelly, the first one?
Yes.
And this one is called Still Psyched Out. That is the book, and nobody is getting better. So tell us about the book and then what you're trying to get across.
Well, I wrote Psyched Out 20 years ago. Basically, that was about the problem with psychiatric diagnosing being a fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, then the follow-up is that you're prescribing very, very dangerous psychiatric drugs based on that fraudulent diagnosis. In other words, when I say diagnosis is fraudulent, I say there's no objective, confirmable abnormality, which is what medicine and science requires. Okay. So it's based on somebody's understanding of your behavior.
Yeah.
Your responses to questions, basically. That's how they diagnose you. Okay. In psychiatry. So then you turn around with that very elastic diagnosis, okay, and you give somebody a very serious mind-altering drug, which, by the way, the pharmaceutical companies openly admit on the package insert that they don't know how it actually works in the brain for the treatment of your psychiatric diagnosis, whether it's, depression or bipolar, anxiety, ADHD, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, they think they know, but they don't actually know. And they use a lot of lawyer words like maybe due to, right? So they're covering themselves. So that was what Psyched Out was about 20 years ago. And then I was asked to update the data in it because there's an awful lot of data about psychiatry, psychiatric diagnosing, and of course the drugging. And so I said, okay, I'll update it. But it was a great opportunity at that point to talk a little bit more about the dangers associated with these psychiatric drugs. And we see right now under the administration with Bobby Kennedy, he's looking at SSRIs, how they affect women who are pregnant and taking them, the withdrawal effects, which is very, very important. These are very hard drugs to get off. And then also the sexual symptoms that you have with the withdrawal, going off of SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which is a long word. It's an antidepressant. Prozac was the first SSRI.
Yeah.
So I had an opportunity to write about some of this that's happened in the last 20 years. I mean, I talk about the shooter in Aurora, Colorado. I talk about Sandy Hook. I talk about, in fact, there are some ongoing cases right now in Massachusetts with Lindsay Clancy, the mother who killed her 3 kids, strangled them, and then jumped out the second floor window. Well, cut her wrist and jumped out the second floor window. She didn't die. She's a paraplegic. And they want to bring charges against her. My argument is we're bringing charges against the wrong people. She had 2 psychiatrists who literally prescribed her 13 different mind-altering drugs in a 4-month period. 13.
Wow.
And they wonder why she did what she did. I mean, I could go through a list of some of these abnormal behavior. If you have, like, say, you take an antidepressant, possible adverse events, mania, psychosis, abnormal behavior, hallucinations, psychosis. I mean, we can go through the list. It just keeps going on and on and on. And what we find now is that a lot of people are on cocktails of these drugs. In other words, more than one.
And they don't know anything about what they're doing or how they're working together or any of that, right?
Well, the thing is that when pharmaceuticals conduct clinical trials, like say, let's use Eli Lilly as an example with Prozac, okay? They may do a short term, 12 weeks of people being on it, and you have to come up with 2 statistically better results than if they were just on placebo. Okay. Well, Eli Lilly did like 28 clinical trials to get two that were successful. Okay.
Wow.
So, and the pharmaceuticals don't take somebody else's drug. They don't take Paxil and Prozac and do clinical trials to see how they act together. They don't do that. We have no idea. There's no science about whether it's good or bad to take more than one psychiatric drug at a time. And in America right now, 1 in 4 adults is on at least one psychiatric drug. 1. Okay.
So it's a huge moneymaker, right?
Oh, the money is unbelievable. And that, of course, is why we have this problem. And I would argue, I only have 30 minutes with you and I'm trying to get a lot in here. I would argue that the mental health model that we've been using for 50 years, okay, is a failure, an utter and complete failure, okay? Because what we notice is every year, despite hundreds of billions of dollars, every year, the federal government, state governments, they throw hundreds of billions of dollars into mental health, behavioral health, right? Nobody's getting better. They're just getting more drugged. They just get more drugged. They don't get better. In other words, they don't get off the drugs. They just get more drugs. And that's not better, okay? I don't care by anybody's, standard. Getting more drugs doesn't mean you're better.
Well, you were early on this, but Tucker did an interview recently with, I forget, a woman from Greenwich. Same things you were saying. She was diagnosed just by verbal cues. She ended up getting put on a lot of different medications, had multiple different, side effects, sexual side effects, all this kind of stuff, and then eventually got off. But it's the same horrific journey you're talking about. Is this what everybody's going through?
It's very, very hard. And the thing is I'm a big advocate of an exit plan. In other words, I don't see us going, okay, we're not going to use psych drugs anymore. We're just going to stop all that. I don't see that happening because there's too much money behind it. Okay. In fact, the behavioral health community is so big now. It's enormous how much money is being thrown at that. Okay. And I wish somebody would look at it because, like I said, nobody's getting better. If you look at the data in my book, nobody's getting better, yet we're throwing billions and billions and billions of dollars at it. It's like its own cottage industry.
Sure.
Mental health. Okay?
Not cottage anymore.
No, exactly. Right. So my argument would be, if we have to live with these drugs, and I think a lot of people are finally coming around and realizing this isn't a good thing. But if we have to live with them, there ought to be a federal law, and I'm actually working with somebody about some legislation about it, that says if you go to your doctor and they prescribe a psychiatric drug, they have to literally say, we're going to put you on this for 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, you have to come back in and we need to talk about this. Okay. I'm going to take you off of it and sit no later than 6 months. Here's how we're going to get off of it. Okay. Because it's really hard to get off these drugs. In other words, people need to know there's an exit plan to getting off an antidepressant. You're not supposed to be on an antidepressant your whole life. It's not supposed to happen.
That's the business model, right?
Well, that's totally the business model. But the problem is nobody is standing up for the people. And I go, just in the last 3 weeks, what have we noticed, Todd? What have we noticed on TV? We had the Manhattan shooter. What'd they say? Oh, he had a mental health background, mental illness background, right? That's right. Right at the very beginning, that's what they said. Then we had the Montana bar guy, the ex-Army guy.
Yep.
And again, they say, oh, he had a mental health history. And now, just yesterday with the Target shooting, he had a mental health history. What they're not telling you is what drugs they've had these people on. Wow. That's what they're not telling you. And that's what we need to know. Every time one of these things happens, that needs to be the first question that the public gets to know. What drugs were these guys on? Because all these drugs change your behavior, and it's not always in a good way.
So I have two questions for you. Do the docs get paid for this? Is it like a commission based, and also the media is complicit because they're not talking about this, right? What say you?
Right. Well, what I say is, number one, I don't think docs actually get big money for it because it's most of the drugs, those SSRIs, most of them, have lost their exclusivity. You know, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But I do blame television. I blame the news for not talking about it. But look at how much money they make on advertising. If you bring up MSNBC, it might as well be called MSN Pfizer.
Sure.
I mean, that's where they get their advertising. And I don't ever see it happening unless Bobby Kennedy can be successful in pulling the advertising for drugs on TV, which would be great, because we're the only country in the world that allows it. We're the only country that allows this kind of advertising.
So what do you think? You mentioned Kennedy. He's obviously trying to, I think, do what he can, but he's obviously running up into limitations of what he can and can't do, because there's some pushback on some of the mRNA stuff. Do you know anything? Do you have any insight into that, into what's happening?
In the mRNA world,
Or
other than
or just the pharma world in general with Kennedy?
I think he's up against a behemoth. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the poor guy has really good ideas
Mm-hmm.
to tackle the SSRIs. For my purposes, I'm concerned about the drugging of our children
Mm-hmm.
that becomes cradle to grave. So yes, am I glad that he's going after the SSRIs, trying to find out, what the problem is with these? Should we be giving these to pregnant women? Should we be giving these to children? No. I could go down the list. Okay. I'd love to be on a panel.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw a really good panel last week about the SSRIs and pregnant people. It was a great panel. The first time in 30 years, I've heard people stand up and say, this isn't a good idea. It was great.
Wow.
It was absolutely wonderful.
Where was this? I didn't see this.
This was the FDA. The FDA held this expert meeting, okay, and it was absolutely stunning.
Wow. So progress.
The information that came out. Yeah, the progress, exactly. But it's taken 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And look at how many people are harmed. Right.
So, I've always wondered about these school shootings, because to me it was just too like pattern recognition, right? I mean, you see these over and over and over and over again, very similar. Do we know if SSRIs were involved in a lot of these or not?
Yes. In fact, the reason I got involved in this issue to begin with, believe it or not, I was a reporter for the Washington Times, and I did an article, and it was called Guns and Doses. And it was after the Columbine shooting. And I looked at the previous 13 school shooters up to and including Columbine. Okay. And what it showed was what they all had in common. The only thing they had in common was that they either were on psychiatric drugs or were receiving psychiatric assistance. Okay. Mental health help. And I thought, okay, that's really interesting. So I wrote this article. It was a great article. I got a great response from the public on this article. And so it kind of took me down this path of looking into the diagnosing and also the drugs. So since then, the first thing you do whenever you see a school shooting now, okay, the first thing I do, obviously, is like, okay, give it 3 days and we'll find out if this kid was receiving any mental health treatment.
Right.
As soon as they say they were receiving mental health treatment, they were drugged. It just goes hand in hand. The problem is under HIPAA, and especially if you're a child under 18, they won't release your medical records. So it's very, very difficult to get that data. Okay. So, but it should be readily available in today's world with so many kids on psych drugs and so many adults on psych drugs. This should be the first thing that we're told now. But instead what they do is they go, oh, he had a mental health issue. They don't tell you, oh, by the way, he was on a cocktail of mind-altering drugs that could cause this behavior, right?
So there's a huge push for more mental health behavior across from the local level all the way on up.
Right.
What should be done about that? I mean, what do people need to know, I guess, about that? To me, it's more of a control mechanism, but what do you think?
I would argue that we need some real honesty. There has to be a way for people to be told when they're put on these drugs. Remember, Todd, up until just recently, people were told that they were on an antidepressant because it may be due to a chemical imbalance in their brain.
Yeah.
Right. Well, even if you just took a little minute and went, wait a minute, did they do a test on my brain? What chemicals were short? There's no test. There's no test known to man to measure your brain chemicals. No. So
that's just a made up phrase.
Yeah, it's totally made up. It was a theory that never came true. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was recently debunked in 2003 by Dr. Joanna Moncrief. And so I'm glad that came out, but we need honesty. When a parent walks into a doctor's office and they want to put that little 7-year-old boy on Ritalin, okay, for ADHD, here's what they need to say. ADHD is a psychiatric diagnosis that's not based in science. It's based on behaviors. If he raises his hand at a turn, if he doesn't sit still in his seat, that's ADHD. And we have a drug that we can give your son. It's the closest thing we have to cocaine. Okay. And it doesn't really treat any abnormality in his body. but it'll change his behavior. That's what we need parents to know.
Make him more compliant, right? Like,
yeah, it's like, be told the truth. Be told the truth. Instead, they're told, oh, he suffers, from ADHD, and we have some really good medications that will help him.
Wow,
it's the closest thing we have to cocaine.
Jeez, I didn't know that. So what do you want people to get from the book? When they read Still Psyched Out, what are they going to?
I hope that they will find some truth in it, so that if they are suffering from depression, from being high or low or have anxiety or whatever, all these very normal human behaviors, these are not mental illnesses, they're human behaviors, Yes. But psychiatry has told us they're abnormal, but they're not. They're completely normal, okay? That, there are ways. In fact, now on every website, if you go to the pharmaceutical websites, they'll tell you exercise is the first best thing you can do. Okay. It's on their own websites.
Like recess. Like if the guy's hyperactive, let him go play in the playground, right?
Exactly, Todd. And that's what we did when we were younger. That's what we did. We went on the playground and we ran like we were crazy for 20 minutes.
Yes, exactly.
So I would just say we need more honesty. And my book, I think, will give you a lot of data to show that what I'm saying is right, that we have a problem, that nobody is actually getting better because these pills don't treat an abnormality. They simply change your behavior. And we don't know if that's good or bad. And for a lot of people, it's not a good thing. Okay. They don't handle these drugs well.
Well, you mentioned the high percentage of Americans on these drugs. Where does this go in the future? I mean, it's a real problem, right?
Well, we're already at that point. I think we're at the breaking point. Even today on Fox News, I watched a whole show about we need to get some of these people off the street. They were talking about DC and the young people who have, all the violence on the streets and stuff.
Yeah. And
I go, they think we need to put them in mental institutions where they can get the care that they need. Okay. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure. We've done that before. Right. And again, I go back to the model that we're using. The drugging thing isn't working.
Yes.
Drugging people isn't working. And nobody wants to understand that because there's too much money involved. Nobody wants to go there. Plus, we've become a world of there's very little compassion. Have you ever noticed that? We don't have a whole lot of compassion anymore for people who are going through hard times because, hey, take this pill. This pill will fix whatever ails you.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, hey, I'll listen to you. What's going on?
Yeah.
We've lost the compassion that we used to have, I think, because, well, we can just take a pill.
Obviously, I think the pharma advertising is the key to this. You get it off because then once you remove that incentive, then other avenues would open up, right?
I think that would help a lot. I think they say that. I think there was a study a while ago that showed that like 95% of people who saw a drug on TV, went to the doctor, asked for it, and got it.
Yeah.
So that's a problem when people are, seeing something on TV and all of a sudden, oh, I must have that, and I want that drug. You know what I mean? But
I was going to say, I think that the pharma advertising, yes, that happens, but I think the real issue is they don't talk about what they don't want you to talk about, because they're paying you. So they don't talk about SSRIs in school shootings. Right. But anyway, I interrupted you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, what we do here is after a shooting, like even down in Jacksonville, the young kid who went to University of Florida, Jacksonville, his mother was his stepmother was a sheriff there. He had major mental health issues. Okay. But they never tell us what he was on. They never tell us the drugs these people are on. Look at Audrey Hale in Nashville. Okay. She was seen by psychiatry for 20 years. 20 years. She was 27 years old. 20 years of her life she saw a psychiatrist. They still won't tell us all the drugs she was on. And they wonder why she walked into that school and shot up people.
And you throw the whole transgender thing in there. It's a whole other wrinkle on top of all this.
Well, that'll be for another show. But yes, that is a whole other wrinkle.
So Kelly, what else do you want people to know? Get out to talk, anything on the book or?
Yeah, just, get the book. And I think I think the best thing you'll find in it is that if you're taking one of these drugs, you're going to see that maybe the behavior that you're recognizing in yourself actually is real. Okay. That it may be a side effect of the drug, and it's something you can talk to your doctor about. And then how to get off the drugs, because people are never told how to get off of them. They're given the drug prescription, they're on the drug, and they're on it forever. Or they're changed, or they're added with another one because I don't really feel better. Well, let me give you another one. Let me give you an antidepressant and an antipsychotic. That'll work, right? And so suddenly they're out of their mind.
Well, this woman on the Tucker was talking to said she had bodily changes, like weight changes, sexual changes, gut problems, all this stuff that came from this cocktail of drugs that she was on.
And I don't know if she talked about it, but I'm sure she talked about just being out of her mind. The feeling out of like numbness.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about SSRIs. A lot of people, if you interview them, they'll say, you don't feel happy and you don't feel sad. You don't feel anything. You don't feel anything. You're numb. And I thought, wow, that's a hell of a way to go through life.
It sure is.
I mean, life has ups and downs, and you want to feel them, I think, You
want to be on that roller coaster.
Yeah.
Kelly, thank you very much. The book is Still Psyched Out by Kelly O'Meara, and historyofbooks.com. And thank you. And we'll have you back down the road with your next book.
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate it.
Take care. Bye.